think tanks from their operatives what they're planning if he gets elected. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not endorsing Romney either here. He's bought and paid for by the same people. But Obama is so over the top that he's just unusually dangerous with the government-run health care, the shutting down power plants without congressional approval, the giving billions to his buddies in no-bid contracts and energy deals. I mean, it is the Chicago Mafia on steroids running our country, and they've done some amazing research. Aaron Klein is a New York Times bestselling author, journalist, and radio host. He's a senior reporter for WorldNet Daily and hosts Aaron Klein Investigative Radio on New York's WABC, the nation's largest talk station. Klein's program is one of only 2 weekend shows in the U.S. to make the Heavy Hitter 100 for the top of American radio shows for Talkers Magazine. His previous books include Red Army, The Manchurian President, The Late Great State of Israel, and Schmoozing with Terrorists. And Aaron Klein joins us right now from their research to break down. That's why I like the book. It goes from what they're saying they're going to do, but this isn't getting I mean, it's a bestseller already, but it's not getting the attention it should. Really scary what Obama will do, because then he isn't facing re-election. He can basically do anything and have pardons. That's why it's so scary if you're a new listener. I know most of you know that. So, Aaron, good to have you on with us, sir.
Thanks for having me. By the way, I also don't endorse Romney. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm an independent. I actually think that Romney's probably going to be a slow-motion version of Obama. But as you said, these plans really lay out very clearly that if Obama gets another 4 years, we will not recognize the country.
I agree with you, because then he, again, isn't facing re-election, has the pardon power. Run through it, why you decided to write the book, basically, break down for us. Obviously, the book covers it in more detail, but what the plans really are. I mean, this is a news-making interview here. A lot of people, I don't think, realize if you think Obama's been bad, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, the flexibility that Obama promises to the Russian president on, let's say, missile defense in Europe, that obviously begs the question, if he's hiding policies from the American electorate on foreign policy, what is he hiding when it comes to domestic policy? So I personally was prompted to write the book because I saw how in 2008, Obama ran on such a general platform on hope, on change, on fundamentally transforming the U.S. Of course, actually not a single reporter, as far as I know, bothered to ask him directly, what do you mean, Obama, by fundamentally transforming the U.S.? What do you want to transform it into? Well, he's trying to do the same thing now, and that is run on a general platform of, prominently of something called economic fairness. He constantly talks about fair share. The rich should pay their fair share. But what does that mean? Why doesn't anybody bother to ask him what it means? So what I have done is I've gone through, there are certain key progressive organizations that were behind Obama's first-term agenda, and actually in a very specific way. I mean, to the point where some of these groups, like the Center for American Progress, like DEMOS, like the Institute for Policy Studies, like the Economic Policy Institute, these groups crafted parts of what actually became the text of the stimulus bill, what actually became some of the text of the health care bill in Obama's first term. So what I've done is go through thousands, with my co-author, Brenda J. Elliott, thousands upon thousands of documents for what these same progressive groups and activists who are behind, in a very real way, Obama's first-term agenda, what they're planning for his second term, for recommendations for his second term on all fronts, on jobs, on economy, on exactly, by the way, what he means by economic fairness, on immigration overhaul, which will translate into executive amnesty for millions of illegals, on health care, which might begin with Obamacare, but that's just the start. We're talking about nudging toward a single-payer system, on national energy policy, on Pentagon plans, on, by the way, using the Pentagon for globalist agenda, and so much more.
Continue.
Yeah. Talk about economic fairness, because, again, Obama really has been driving that term home. In fact, he gave a speech in 2012, January 2012, his State of the Union, where he used economic fairness, that phrase, something like 5 or 6 times. Well, economic fairness, first of all, before we even get to what he's planning specifically, comes directly from Marxist doctrine. It comes right out of the Marxist playbook. I could trace it back to ideologues who want to basically spread America's wealth. But what I've gone through here is the progressive gang, again, behind Obama's first term, and they have specific plans for economic fairness. Let's go over them and see how fair they sound to you. For example, paycheck fairness, where the U.S. government, the federal government, can come and determine what would be the fair pay for an individual job in the private sector. So that's a bit of government centralization and control over there. Or welfare fairness, or actually specifically it's called living wage fairness, where the government swoops in and raises the minimum wage to meet what's known as the basic needs of individuals, such as housing, food, utilities, transportation, healthcare, recreation. So you might actually think, wow, that sounds really good. The government's going to come in and raise the bar on my paycheck. That's amazing. The problem is that this has actually been tried in the past. In fact, in over 80 cities from the 1990s until 2003. And by the way, it was pushed by Acorn in the past, and it failed. It failed miserably. It actually caused local economies in different cities to crash and burn. So again, this is just the beginning of economic fairness. Also, by the way, economic fairness to bring more unions into private industry, to nudge the unions into the industries, for example, with tax incentives and other things. And so now we can get a better picture of the kind of economic fairness, including, by the way, forcing companies to pay sick leave for 12 weeks, even if somebody's taking care of somebody else in the family who is sick. And again, actually, that sounds really good. Obama's for the worker. That's what it sounds like. The problem is who's going to pay for all of this. And actually, when you look at all of the plans that I outline in Fool Me Twice, and economic fairness is just the start, the theme here certainly is nudging closer toward a welfare state, toward a state where the government is involved in pretty much every aspect of our lives, literally from cradle to grave.
Well, I agree with you, and I don't think people realize just how big a threat we're facing, and that they're already shutting down 1/3 of the power plants. They've shut down about 1/3 of that third. Power outages, giant power increases. Our mayor said for the earth, they've shut down 2 of our power plants. The third is now being shut down, and they say, if you don't like your power prices doubling, get ready, it's going to double over that. It's just a pretext to take over. This is a foreign army with bombers couldn't do this much damage to our country.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you talk about the power plants shutting down. We also have battery companies. The day after Obama boasted about it, for example, in his State of the Union, a kind of green battery company, and then one of the battery companies from Obama's stimulus went bankrupt. Here we are, mass corruption from Obama's first-term stimulus, 2009 green stimulus, to the point where actually in the book, Fool Me Twice, I have even more corruption, including top Obama administration officials tied to companies that received hundreds of millions of dollars in stimulus funding. But again, forget about that. Look at just the miserable failure economically of these green companies going bankrupt. Well, actually, in Obama's second term, there are plans for a new green stimulus. There are also plans for a national independent energy trust, which would be basically a federal green bank, plus actually greening the military. So we see a theme here of massive government jobs works program, by the way, also coming, but then a theme of using so-called global warming, the so-called theory of global warming, as if it wasn't highly in question after the leaked emails of 2009, to advocate for more green stimulus, but again, to advocate for using the military to actually, in some of these progressive plans, this is how loony it goes, to fight global warming. In fact, I saw different progressive groups.
Well, I'll tell you what, stay there. Tell us about that on the other side. That's a total power grab. The Coming up at the start of the next segment as we continue with our guest, I'm going to break down the new InfoWars magazine. We're putting 50,000 on the streets of Austin today and tomorrow with the little stands and everything. And we're going to mail them out to everybody that orders books or videos or films or T-shirts at Infowars.com. That'll be added free to the orders, just like the Citizen Rulebook and bumper stickers. I tell you, just the amount of free stuff we're adding is amazing. And we're selling them at cost. At cost. I mean, we got down, did the calculating. This is at cost, what we're selling these at. You can buy them in groups of 10, 20, right up to 100 at cost. At cost. And have an incredible color magazine to hand out to people and wake folks up. It's powerful. You can go see the new cover at Infowars.com. We'll talk more about that here in about 10 minutes or so. Aaron Klein, again, WorldNet Daily mailed me probably 20 different books they've published. They're big publishers for folks that don't know. And I scanned over a bunch and read about 3 of them, to decide which ones I wanted to carry. And yours is one of the ones I decided to carry at InfoWarsShop.com because you guys have done the research. And, all I do is study these people. And I learned some stuff here. But you've got how they all operate, the agit-props for the cameras, the Alinsky method, the way they plan to take over society and make us dependent on them. I mean, there's so much in here, and it's hard to really understand how criminal these people are. You break down the fact that they're gearing up to hack the 2012 elections. We have reported on that. But you were getting into the radical, fake environmental power grab agenda. And then let's get into some of the other areas in the book, because it is just a giant smorgasbord of information.
A lot of people are asking me what's the most shocking plan that I found for Obama's second term. And actually, the answer is it's not one shocking plan. It's a series of small shocks, so that by the end of, let's say, another 4 years, it's incremental changes. It's like the frog that's boiling slowly in the hot water. It doesn't realize that it's boiling until it's too late. You talk about power grab. And that's what it is domestically. There's no question that this is government spending out of control, but more than that, it's government involvement in our lives. But then there's also the international aspect of this, of Obama's plans for the military, where on the one hand, we're talking about massive scalebacks to the military, but then on the other, aligning the military closer and closer to the United Nations, to peacekeeping forces worldwide.
Oh, yeah, we've had Obama, as you know, in letters, but also the Joint Chiefs in Congress say that NATO and the UN are now over the military. I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah, we had Panetta tell Congress, we will inform you if we decide to go. But actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because one key aspect of the military chapter in Fool Me Twice is the use of something I'm sure you're familiar with. It's called responsibility to protect, which is the doctrine that Obama employed to violate Libya's nation border, go in and remove Gaddafi, and then put in who knows who.
That was my next point. Now they admit the main force is Al-Qaeda, also in Syria, and that's what he's twisted the protect clause into. That's my next question. Why do you think the president is openly aligning with Al-Qaeda and jihadis?
I don't think that he is openly. What he's doing here is very interesting, actually, is that I believe that he sees the Muslim Brotherhood as somebody that the United States, but that also internationally and globally, the global community can do business with, and actually that it would nudge closer to what seems to be the goal of the responsibility to protect authors. And I've actually personally gone through the literature of responsibility to protect, who crafted it, how it was crafted. George Soros is all over it, and it was also authored by 2 individuals who write time and again how their goal. They actually write this, and nobody bothers to look into this. I'm talking about Gareth Evans and Georgian Thakor. They talk about how their ultimate goal is to violate nation-states' borders and to ensure a one-world order, global rebalancing, international international redistribution. That's their word. The